This is an interview that I've been looking forward to doing for a while because there's a personal connection here that I'm going to get into later. Joining me today is Kathy Bernard, on location from British Columbia, Canada, and Natalie Richardson is in studio with me here in Toronto. You guys are with the Save Your Skin Foundation, which is dedicated to the fight against melanoma and non-melanoma skin cancers through education, advocacy, and awareness. Ladies, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
I am going to start with you, Kathy, because you're the first person that I corresponded with from Save Your Skin. And I apologize if I got some of the dates wrong, and if I did, feel free to correct me. But I understand that your own battle started in 2003. Can you take me back to the beginning, tell me about what happened, and tell me about the symptoms that you dealt with?
In 2003, I was getting ready actually to go play softball in the national games in Australia. And I had a mole on my back, a little lump on my left arm, and my nose was peeling a little bit. And my niece, her uncle had melanoma years before, had prompted me to go see my GP about the mole on my back. So I went in, to be told it was fatty tissue. I was about 45 at the time, and not to worry about it. And I thought, okay. So I said, "Are you sure?" Because I've been a huge sun tanner. I have very British white skin. And I've done an awful lot of sports over my life outside without sunscreen. So I just needed to double check. Anyways, I went back 4 times that year to be told it was still fatty tissue. And then when I got 2 lumps on my arm, I went back in. They did some biopsies, and I was told I had stage 4 metastatic melanoma.
So the mole on your back was cancerous the whole time?
It was nothing. And
it was nothing.
It was nothing. The little lump on my left arm was actually the culprit.
Oh, really? Really? Now, you said that you had a history of tanning your whole life. Are you talking just out in the sun, or are you talking tanning beds?
Both.
Both.
And I know on camera I probably look only 40, but I'm not. And in my generation, the tanning beds were actually in our gyms that we went to work out to stay healthy and fit, and then we'd go have a 20-minute tan after. So I was a culprit of all, and I'm from we put baby oil on our skin, and I've laid on the roof of my mom's house, anything I could do to darken the skin that I have.
Right. Now, you already mentioned it, but I understand you spent a lot of time on the baseball diamond, not just as a player, but you've got sons that play it as well?
Yeah, I coached actually even before my sons were born. I'm a huge softball player.
Very nice. And so tell me about the first treatments that you had, because obviously things have evolved over time. So I understand that your first treatments had to do with self-injections, and there were a lot of side effects to that.
Yeah, there actually were no treatments for melanoma. The one that I got, most doctors don't even prescribe because the success rate of it is very, very low. But I wanted something. So yeah, I self-injected for 365 days.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a drug actually that had originally come out for the HIV community.
It's
called
really?
interferon. So yeah, I lost about, 50 pounds. I lost most of my hair. Very fatigued. I very seldom got out of bed except to go coach my little girls' ball team because I adored them. And it was really intense. But that was it. That was all there was for me. So I took it.
And then I think it was in 2005, you were given a pretty grim prognosis. Can you walk me through what happened then?
I had gone in to get a chest x-ray. I was getting routine tests. I went in the January and my chest x-ray was good. By March of 2005, I was starting to wisp a little bit. And I thought, gee, that doesn't sound right. And I went back in and they found a 14-centimeter mass in my left lung. So the cancer was back. There was no treatment. My oncologist sent me to a surgeon. They wanted to take my complete lung out.
Wow.
My oncologist didn't want to do that. He knew how active I was in sports. And he said, before we do that, we need to see where else the cancer has gone. So it turned out it had spread to my lung, liver, bone, adrenal gland, and kidney. And at that point, I was given 3 to 6 months.
3 to 6 months. Now, wasn't it somewhere along that timeline that you decided to create Save Your Skin? Was it around that time that you got that prognosis?
It was shortly after. My son at that point, unbeknownst to me, had contacted a doctor in the US and said, you need to save my mom. And he said, well, we have a clinical trial here in the US that we can get into Canada, but your mom will have to find a center that'll administer it because I needed to be in the hospital 24/7. We were lucky enough to find the Cross in Alberta. I went and had 4 rounds of that treatment. Side effects of that were also very harsh. I think I code blued a couple times, but
Really?
I had a complete response. So yeah, so by the end of 2005, all tumors had disappeared. And we knew then that we needed to do something as a family. And we worked with my oncologist in Alberta, and we started Save Your Skin Foundation, very small in North Vancouver, British Columbia. And it has now grown not only across Canada, but throughout the globe. So I'm really pretty proud of what we have accomplished. In all of that, my cancer came back again in 2007.
Right.
We did surgically removed the tumor, and then I went on another clinical trial in 2007. I had 4 rounds of that, and I've been clear ever since. So I'm one of the very, very lucky ones.
That's great. That's great. Now I understand that with skin cancer, with melanoma, they say that you technically always have it, or it can come back at any time, and you're supposed to do, I guess, checks every 6 months. But if you're in remission long enough, then the odds are good that it's not going to come back. Is that right?
Can be. We had about 5 of us on a call yesterday that have all been clear over 7 years. So we never use the word cure. A lot of us don't even like to say survivor because we're nervous
Right.
about that. I'm
Right.
checked every year, but I do have a checkup and a CAT scan coming up, and I really want to talk to my oncologist now about that to see if I can extend that time a little bit. Because
Right.
as Nat is going to tell you too, it's very stressful every year having to get all the scans and get
Sure.
yourself mentally prepared for you
For
know
the results. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna talk in a little bit about my sister's story because I connected with you about her, and I understand everything you just said because she dealt with all of it too. But first thing I'm going to do is I want to turn to you, Natalie, and I want to talk to you about your story, similar but different to Kathy's. And for you, it started in 2014, and you were just in your 30s.
That's right.
Tell me about what happened in your situation.
Yeah, I was 37 years old, and I was a busy working mom, and I had a mole that was on my hip that had been there my whole life, but I didn't really pay attention to it. I was also a son baby throughout my life, and always was, grew up and hang out on the water. And so over the course of about 6 to 8 months, this mole on my hip started changing, and it turned black and changed shape and got bumpy and kind of all the things that they say to look out for. And as I say, being a busy working mom, I neglected it and didn't get it checked. So by the time I finally did have it checked, when my daughter actually kind of insisted that I do that in front of our doctor, our family physician, she looked at it and immediately knew that I was in trouble. So 2 days later, I was on a surgeon's table, and that mole was removed, and it was confirmed to be melanoma. And then I had to have a sentinel lymph node biopsy, which is a pretty painful and invasive kind of experience. And that confirmed that it was a stage 3B melanoma that had spread to my lymph nodes. So then in 3 weeks, I was in Sunnybrook in surgery again for lymph node dissection surgery, which is pretty, again, invasive, but quite extensive, and on bed rest for 2 months. And then I was able to get into a clinical trial for one of these new therapies that uses your immune system to fight melanoma and cancer. And thankfully, I've been no evidence of disease ever since. And I still get scans every year at Sunnybrook, and I just thank my lucky stars, and I'm grateful for being healthy at this point.
For sure. And Sunnybrook is in Toronto, Canada, in case anybody is outside the country hearing this. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you was 3B, stage 3B. I'd never heard of that. So what is stage 3B?
Well, I hadn't heard of it either. I didn't know anything about cancer, and certainly not skin cancer.
Yeah.
So when I first was told stage 3B, I thought, how many stages are there in cancer? I think it's 7. I'm like, I'm good. Then I was told, no, it's 4. So 4 is metastatic. It's gone to an organ or multiple organs, or the brain or the blood or bones, right? Yeah. And stage 3, or any of the A, B, C, D, stage 3 means lymph nodes. So the letter categories kind of depict how advanced the spread is and how quickly it's spreading. So I had a very quick mitotic rate, which is a fast spread. So it was a very high risk for it to advance into metastatic involvement into organs.
Okay. Now, is there this A, B, C, D for every stage?
Yes, for 1, 2, and 3.
Okay. First time I'd ever heard about that. Now, I understand your first reaction when you first got this diagnosis was, this just skin cancer? Like you kind of downplayed it, like they'll remove the mole and we're good kind of thing?
That's what I thought was the case, yes.
Right.
But I quickly learned that that's absolutely not in the case of melanoma and some of the non-melanoma skin cancers as well. They can metastasize and be very dangerous. And so I, tried to avoid surgery. I fought it tooth and nail, but I was quickly educated by my medical team that I didn't have that option, and this was serious. And I left work. I went on leave, on a disability leave. I ended up being off for 3 years, and surgery, treatments for over a year, and just a very difficult time.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Now, you might have already mentioned this, but you were diagnosed with another type, papillary thyroid cancer. Was that related to the skin cancer?
Technically, no, although I think that's still being studied in throughout the world. But it just happened that they found a tumor on my thyroid from my CAT scan for melanoma.
Got it.
So then I had a thyroidectomy and treatment for thyroid cancer in between my treatments for melanoma. So I was in the city quite a bit. I live north of the city, and I was down here a lot, and
Right.
got to know all of my oncologists very well.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I understand that you had 68 weeks of chemo.
Yes, it was immunotherapy, and but over the course of it was 68 weeks.
68
You've really done
weeks.
your research.
Yeah, I
Yes.
did. I did my research. I
Yeah,
did.
I guess it was because it was
Was that
August to
every
September.
week?
No, it was one treatment 3 weeks apart. So sorry, 4 treatments 3 weeks apart, and then 4 treatments 3 months apart, and CAT scans every 3 months throughout. So they watched everything very closely.
Wow. Yeah.
Mhm.
Sounds like it. And tell me about the rehabilitation process, because one thing I read about you was, I guess there's an area with a lighthouse, and you and your daughters like to jump the rocks by the lighthouse. And apparently, when you're going through rehabilitation and treatment, physically, you weren't able to do that.
No, I wasn't, because of the lymph node removal surgery that they did. It's called lymph node dissection. It was on my right groin, so I have a scar from my hip to the middle of my thigh, and to avoid some of the side effects that come from that surgery, you have to lay flat and with your legs elevated for 2 months. So I was only allowed to get up to bare minimum purposes and bed rest. I couldn't drive, I couldn't walk, I couldn't play with my kids, I couldn't hang out with my family, and it was devastating. I was devastated.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
And how old were you? I understand you have twin daughters. How old were your daughters at that time?
They were 12 at the time.
Okay,
Yeah,
12.
they were 12. So they were at a tough age to try to deal with
Yeah.
seeing me so suddenly incapacitated. And
Right.
then, I have family and friends that came to help, and everybody rallied for us and really pitched in and got us through. But I was still feeling very alone, and I was just in a really dark place and needed support.
Sure.
Because though my family and friends loved us and loved me, everybody wanted everything to be okay. They, none of us knew that, and it was always a really tough time.
Sure. Sure. Now, how long have you now? Kathy was saying she doesn't like to say cure. Can you say remission?
It's no evidence of disease, which is
No evidence of
Yep.
disease.
So that's kind of the skin cancer term for remission. So yeah, it's been 5 years.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Now, we talked a little bit off air about this. You live in Ontario, Canada. Save Your Skin's based in British Columbia.
Mhm.
How did you get connected to Save Your Skin? Because you're now the managing director there.
Yes.
So how did that happen?
Well, I during that time that I was having a really difficult time with dealing with everything, and just kind of didn't know how to picture my life going forward, because I felt very incapacitated. I was afraid of the sun. I was sick. I was sore. My legs, I did have to sort of get everything going again, and I was really struggling with that in a very dark place. And I was at my dermatologist's office, and I saw a magazine laying on the table, and it said Canadian Skin Patient Alliance, and I thought, what's that? And I thought, well, a skin patient, that must be me. So I picked it up, and I was flipping through, and I saw this article about a lady named Kathy Bernard, and that she had metastatic melanoma, and she had survived and started this foundation. So I stole the magazine and took it home and looked up the website, and I called Kathy, and she answered the phone, and we spoke for a few minutes, and I don't know how she understood me, because I just kind of was crying and telling her my story, because somebody just seemed to understand all of a sudden. And she said, "You're going to be okay. We've got this." And I thought, what? I'm like, it was just, I believed her in that moment.
Right.
And I had that piece of hope. And so then I started volunteering with Save Your Skin and doing, advocacy and awareness initiatives with Kathy in Ontario. So the first time we met was actually at Queen's Park here in
Okay.
Toronto.
In Toronto, yeah.
Yep. And then I just kept volunteering for Save Your Skin, and I'm a writer by hobby. So I had a blog at the time, so I did blogs for Save Your Skin, and then I just kept feeling better and better every time we talked. I mean, we speak almost every day.
Mhm.
And I felt like it was time for me to go back to work, but I really wanted to do something meaningful. So I badgered Kathy into hiring me with Save Your Skin. And I was project coordinator for a year and a half or so, and then just love it so much and find it very fulfilling and good, healthy work. So now I'm there full time, and
That's awesome. And what were you doing before?
I was in finance. So I was a cash office and payroll manager at
Okay.
a large grocery
Okay.
franchise. Mhm.
And Kathy, I should ask you the same thing. What were you doing for work before you started the Save Your Skin Foundation?
Oh, I was road safety manager for the Insurance Corporation of British Columbia.
Okay.
So
Okay.
believe it or not, I really modeled the foundation in those beginning days around the work I had done in road safety, education and awareness. So,
Right.
yeah. So,
Now, I want to talk about people are going to watch this that maybe they just recently got diagnosed, maybe a loved one recently got diagnosed. And like you said, a lot of people sometimes they don't know where to turn or they might feel alone. And so I want to talk about the physical and mental toll that treatment can take on you. I saw it firsthand with my sister. And so I want to talk to you guys about that. Tell me, I'll start with Kathy. Tell me about the mental toll that it took on you, not just to be diagnosed, but the treatment that you were dealing with. I'm sure there's probably depression. I'm sure there's probably fear. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that?
oh, yeah. And it starts right at diagnosis, right at the word. I think we all know that as soon as we're told we have cancer, the next 15 minutes we don't hear. And I know I was told the very first thing they told me was not to go home and get on the computer, which of course we all did.
Yes.
Our boys were in their 20s. So it was the first thing we all did. We hopped on. And in my time of melanoma, there were no survivors or very few, and I could not find them.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't find any information. And the information I did find was so outdated that I knew in that moment that I was really in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And there was just nobody for us. And I think that's the first thing I say to patients when they contact us, right? Is we need to make sure that we build you your team. You need to have a nutritionist, you need to have somebody professionally that you can speak with because it's a long journey and it doesn't end. Mine, even though people would say, well, you've been, clear a long time and things must be back to normal. I don't even know now what normal is. It's a different life that I have. And
Mm-hmm.
I know it because I live it. But the people around me who love me, it's now a different life for them. And I know even for them, it was tough because they thought we would go back to that normal life, and it's just not a normal life.
Right.
So yeah, anxiety, depression, a lot of the treatments, there is depression. I'll be really honest. I really follow patients very, very closely. I hope they never lose touch with me because my anxiety and depression came 5 years after the fact. For what reason, I do not know. But honestly, I was fine. I think that's really when I felt I lost my support medically, because once you leave clinic and you stop treatment,
Mm-hmm.
that part of your life is gone. And you don't realize how intricate they are in the process until you don't have them. And I hear that a lot. Usually when I get the most calls through the foundation is when people are newly diagnosed and when their treatment ends.
Really?
Yes, because all of a sudden they're like, oh, wow, that whole group of medical support is now gone.
Right.
And, I'm walking into this new space alongside my family who are trying to figure out that new space. And it's really a difficult time. It really is.
Interesting. I never even would have considered that. Never would have considered that. Now, in your case, I know that one of your physical goals was to be able to jump rocks again,
Mhm.
and you were.
Mhm.
You remember when that happened?
Yeah. Yes, I do. And it was still kind of icy too,
Oh,
because
so
it took quite a
I hope it
while.
didn't
So
end with you
it was
falling or
no,
anything.
no, didn't. But no, it was a pretty momentous occasion for us, and we just tried it and thought, well, let's just go see, and we did, because we have a big break wall where I live, and it's beautiful on the water, and it was worth the effort. But yeah, when I was diagnosed, it was the same. It was a really big shock,
Mm-hmm.
and I was told quite plainly that it was very unlikely that I would see my daughters graduate high school.
Who told you that?
My oncologist. But right,
Really?
I mean, that was the percentages and the just the circumstances surrounding my diagnosis, and that would have been 5-6 years,
Yeah,
and that's what hit me the most. I was frantic. I was desperate to be there for my kids, and
sure,
I just I thought I'll do anything to not to miss. I have to live.
sure, sure.
And so when I found one clinical trial that I was eligible for, there was a 50-50 chance I wouldn't get the treatment. It
Mhm.
was going to be,
Placebo?
yep. And I was just lucky enough to get on the proper side of the clinical trial. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so grateful. And thankfully it worked. But that frantic, desperation and fear and anxiety is just, it does take you over.
Oh, for sure it does. It
Yep.
does.
Yeah.
Kathy, what about you? Do you have were there any physical milestones for you when, you're going through treatment and maybe physically took a toll? Were there any milestones that you had, that you were able to achieve?
Oh, I had a bucket list. I had a bucket list. I wanted to go to the Winter Olympics. I wanted to play one more World Master Games in softball. I wanted to see my sons graduate from university. I wanted them to see them get married and have grandchildren. All those boxes are ticked.
Very good.
This year, the biggest milestone is I played softball for a little bit after my treatments, but I actually ended up breaking my left arm
Oh,
from that original spot that we don't know why, if it was from radiation or whatever, but so I had to take up this other sport called golf, I think. I'm not sure. And my last bucket list was to beat my husband at golf because he's played his whole life, and I succeeded in that last year. So I've had to redraft a whole new bucket list. So,
wow,
but
that's good. I'm sure you're going to check all those boxes too.
you betcha.
Now, I want to talk about skin cancer a bit because, again, I want to try to bring awareness and promote prevention. Having experienced it with my sister, and obviously you guys did yourselves too, I think a lot of people do have the mentality like it's just skin cancer.
Mm-hmm.
I know in my sister's case, she did. She just thought they'll go get it removed and we're good. And I think a lot of people feel the same way. So what can you tell me on a high level? Like I did some research on this. I understand that a lot of young people are not taking sun safety seriously. And I don't know how accurate these statistics are, but I read that 1 in 6 Canadians born in the 90s will get skin cancer in their lifetimes. So on a high level, what could you tell me about skin cancer so that anybody watching this, maybe it'll kind of jolt them into being, more aware and being more susceptible to prevention? Kathy, we'll start with you.
Well, 90% of our young people get skin cancer, which is scary. It used to be the cancer of old people, literally, seriously. And that's not the case anymore.
Mhm.
And, in my day, I used to call myself a professional skin cancer or skin tanner because I could go out at, 11 o'clock and get those rays all day and, I'd get a little color. But I know the UV is different today than it was even back then. And I know for myself, I can be out, with sunscreen, and if I don't reapply within 15 to 20 minutes, I will burn. So, I mean, it worries me that the younger generation is not taking it seriously.
Mhm.
I'm up in Penticton, British Columbia right now, and I drive down along, the beach, and it's tent. Well, it's not even tent; it's umbrella after an umbrella, and it's everybody damaging their skin, and we know it. UV rays are what causes skin cancer in 90% of us. So yeah, it's scary to me. And I will say to people too, like I was you, but I still kind of am. I haven't changed the way I live. I love being outdoors. I love my sports. I water ski. I still do all those things. I've just become a lot smarter. So I make sure I put my sunscreen on, I wear my hat, I have my sunglasses, I have my UV shirts on when I golf, when I play ball, when I ski. I'm just a smarter outdoor athlete now than I was before. And
Mhm.
so I don't say you have to give up what you love, you just have to be safer in what you love.
Now, as we do this, we're still in the middle of COVID-19. And I know that in the US, the idea of COVID fatigue exists a lot more than it does here. They've seen a surge in cases, and the average age has been dropping. Last I read, it was 37 years old. Do you think that the surge in cases in the US, the fact that it's skewing younger, it's a similar problem to the fact that young people are getting skin cancer because they just feel bulletproof. They just feel like it's not going to hurt them. Do you think that's true?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think, how do we kind of get them to become aware of the dangers of this thing?
Well, you know what's so hard about this, James? It's like a behavioral change, right?
Yes.
And I dealt with this when I worked for the insurance corporation. Young people think they're invincible, right? And so, they'll have a couple cocktails. But a group of them will get in a car. They won't put their seatbelt on, and they'll drink and drive. I mean, it's trying to change that behavior. I know in my previous life, education around and awareness around younger people helped a lot. I remember when, seatbelt legislation came into this country, it was mostly younger people, raising awareness to their parents and, to their older siblings. So I know we try to model Save Your Skin after, again, about that, about, educating our kids when they're little. I look at all the little tots that are actually on the beach right now. They all have a water, their water with them, making sure their parents are making sure they're staying hydrated. But I very seldom see them putting relathering sunscreen or putting something, of a UV component on them. So to me, it's like pumping that message over and over and over till we hope people get it.
Right. It's almost like putting on a face mask during COVID, really.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And aren't we seeing how hard that is?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Tell me about some of the people that you work with in terms of patients. Are you seeing people of younger ages, or are you still mostly dealing with people, say 40, 50s plus?
Younger.
Younger.
And I'd have to tell you what was really the hardest part for me when I started this foundation is the first 6 patients that came to us were under the age of 30.
Really?
They were the age of my children at that time. And I know we haven't really met other than this, but Nat can tell you that I will fly around the globe to meet those families to see what I can offer them. And so I met all 6 of those kids. They became a huge part of Save Your Skin and me. And we lost them all back in 2007. There was no treatments for them then.
Right.
And we lost them. And that was just devastating to me. That this disease could hit that young demographic and riddle through them so quickly. It was shocking to me. I guess even doing my research at that time, I just thought the patients that would come to us would be, 60, 65, 70, where we had lived our life, right, in the sun as farmers or gardeners or whatever. But even to this day, I would have to say, and Nat, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would have to say, over 60% of our patients are under the age of 50.
Really? Really? Wow. Over half.
Yeah.
Wow. You mentioned earlier, you're talking about tanning beds. Kathy, I understand that you were a key player in getting federal tanning beds legislation in place in order to protect young people. Can you talk a little bit about that, about your involvement in getting this tanning bed legislation in place?
Well, firstly, we work provincially, and there was a number of organizations that work together on this. It's never one piece. We need to have that unified voice when we are trying to get legislation done. So we work with the Canadian Cancer Society and our BC Health Minister at the time. And we started by having petitions signed, right? I mean, for me, it was getting them out of a gym. I mean, talk about an oxymoron, having a tanning bed in it, right? And if a fitness facility just didn't feel right. So we were very successful in BC. We had the support of the health minister and the government here. And then, to be honest, we just were sort of a partner in the other provinces. So, we were using the BC model and we're still working on that in Ontario. We're not quite there yet. We're in the middle of working with another organization, but of course, COVID came and we've had to we haven't stopped, but that isn't going, full steam like we would like it to be. But we're hoping that Ontario will also join us. Alberta has, Saskatchewan has, Manitoba has, and we're just now working towards the East and the Atlantics.
And tanning beds used to be the rage in the 80s. I mean, it was the big thing. And you don't hear about them so much anymore. Is it because of awareness, or do you think, or has legislation changed in terms of ages that's made it difficult for these businesses to stay open?
I think it's both.
I was going to say, hopefully both. Hopefully both.
Right.
So did things change in terms of the age? Because I was never a tanning bed guy, so I'm not really up to speed. Did legislation change in terms of age requirements?
It did, yes. Anyone under 18 is banned from going in a tanning bed in every province now, I believe, right? Every province, yeah.
Okay, and when do you recall when that was that happened?
I think the last province finally made that legislation just near the end of 2018.
Yeah.
It was fairly
So
recent. Yeah,
it's fairly recent.
fairly recent.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's great. Better late than never.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, something else, Kathy, that you were involved in that I thought was very interesting. In 2019, there was a pilot project in British Columbia to provide public, free, automatic, touchless sunscreen dispensers. And I had never heard that such a thing even existed in terms of having them free to the public. Tell me about that pilot project. How did it do? And is that something that you're looking to get expanded?
Yes, actually, I'll be honest and give a shout out to the David Cornfield Foundation in Ontario. They've been doing that in the Toronto area, Nat, I think for the last 2 or 3 years.
Oh, I
2
had no
years,
idea.
yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I
They
think they've
have,
expanded to
and
75 parks and the
yeah,
waterfront.
yes, they've done an incredible job. It was a young man who lost his life, and his co-workers and his family started that project. It was hard for us in BC because there's always so much controversy right around sunscreen, and does it work? Does it cause cancer? There's always
Right.
discussions, right?
Chemicals on the skin.
Chemicals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. And then, is it good when people are going into the water with it? There's actually places when you travel that won't let you put sunscreen on if you're going to be diving or snorkeling or whatever. So it was actually a mom here in the Okanagan who had lost her young son to melanoma, and she just needed to do something. And she came to us and we said, we will help you this year. Let's see how it goes. And we ran the pilot in mostly the Okanagan Valley up here, because as you know, during the summer, it gets very, very hot up here. So we ran it at a golf course. We put one in a tourist center and on a beach. And actually, I have to say the call out for them was incredible. Everybody wanted them. We ended up doing a pilot with the city of New Westminster in British Columbia and put one there. The hard part was then we were starting to run out of product because the product comes in from the US. We could not find a Canadian supplier. So we were really looking forward to expand the pilot this year. And then, of course, with COVID, we didn't want to be putting them on the beaches because we really didn't want people congregating on the beaches. So unfortunately, this summer, we had to put the project on hold. But we've had a number of municipalities. We've got Alberta, Saskatchewan, and really all of the communities in BC ready to go in 2021, hopefully when the COVID settles and, we can, get people outside in a very safe fashion in 2021.
Right. Well, now I want to talk more about the Save Your Skin Foundation. So I've talked to you guys a little bit about what I'm doing with Grappling with Grief. And basically the point of this is to try to help people cope with grief in their own life by telling them stories about people who have overcome that grief and have been able to channel it into something positive. And that's basically what the Save Your Skin Foundation came from. So first I want to ask you guys, and I'll start again with you, Kathy. What do you do, say, on an ongoing basis to promote education and awareness of skin cancer? I know that you have annual summits and things like that, but what do you do, say, on an ongoing basis?
Oh, wow. We have an incredible social media feed, and Nat has done a fabulous website. We do educational webinars throughout the year. And they started originally back in, oh my goodness, 2015, because that's when we were starting to see these, wonderful new treatments come into the melanoma space. For most of us in melanoma, we were sort of the dark horse in the cancer family because we had no treatments. And then in 2011, all these new targeted and immuno-oncology started coming to our indication, and fast and furiously. And now they're actually using some of these cancer treatments in other cancer indications. So in the beginning days, we were starting to educate patients on, on skin cancer and melanoma and what it meant and some of the new treatments. And we were using our melanoma task force of physicians and oncologists to help us with that. But then our oncologists came to us because, in the beginning days, there were only really 2 or 3 centers in Canada that knew anything about these new treatments because they're totally different than chemotherapy.
Mm-hmm.
And so they started asking us to start helping them educate other physicians and oncologists and dermatologists. So then our webinars we started doing, almost monthly, where we were not only doing training and educating our patients, but we were also training and educating oncologists, surgeons,
Wow,
dermatologists.
that's amazing. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So, for me, my role really is government relations. I get the luxury. Our first medical advisory board of physicians was one from the US and one from Europe, because I know that they generally get those clinical trials and drugs into their formularies a couple years before we do in Canada. And the first couple of patients that came to us, we were actually moving into the US for treatment. And I thought, well, that just shouldn't happen. So my role at Savior Skin is really to get those treatments and clinical trials in Canada as quickly as I can. So I work with Health Canada and provincial health ministers to do that. Natalie, really, I want to talk about the education and awareness, because she really is the guru in that, and has done incredible work for Save Your Skin in that aspect. So, Nat, I'll let you talk about what you do.
Thanks, Kathy. Yeah, well, the educational webinars that Kathy mentioned are a huge component of our education program, because they're recorded. Even if people can't attend them when they're broadcast, they are available on our website and YouTube for eternity, so people can still access it whenever is convenient for them, but also wherever they are. So whether they're remotely, located outside of, if they're not in a large center like Vancouver or Toronto, they can still access it anywhere in Canada or the world. So that's a huge piece of our program. We also have, as Kathy mentioned, our social media feed and channels, and education programs available online are pretty extensive, and we are always looking for new resources and new ways to get the messaging out. So we work with partners all across Canada and in the States and around the world, actually, leveraging their messaging and ideas. We're on 2 global coalitions that are started in the States, but have partnerships in Europe and the US and Australia as well.
Wow.
So we're able to all share best practices and updated statistics and information on treatments, but also skin cancer itself. So we work really hard to get that message to Canadians, so that they can see that it's a big issue, and it needs to be discussed, and it is being discussed around the world. So
Right.
so that's a big part of what we do. Of course, patient support is our number one priority. So we have monthly programs and one-on-one peer support. So newly diagnosed patients or their caregivers can contact us, Kathy especially, but anyone on our team.
That's great.
To learn more. We're always finding new ideas. We have a list of programs that we'd like to do, and then on top of that, fundraising and all the things that go into the background that keep foundations like this working and able to support people when they need it.
And what is? I'm
sorry,
sorry, Kathy. Go ahead.
I will say too, I said, for me, when I was diagnosed, because all I could find was outdated information, it's really, really important, because we know in melanoma, every day is changing. We saw single agent treatments. Now we're seeing combinations. We're hoping to see a triplet of treatment coming, to a center near you soon. So it was really important that we always made sure we were giving our patients exactly the most current information. So we do roundtables with our physicians on a regular basis, where we sit and they update us on, the new treatments coming into the landscape, or even in issues that they may be having within their center, within their province, that we can, usually help them with. It's really important. We talk to our patients all the time. I try to guarantee, if a patient calls me, if I don't pick up, that I will get back to them within 24 hours, because I know what it's like in that dead space when you've just been told you have a diagnosis and, there's nobody to reach out to. And we can learn from our patients, because I'm the first to admit my journey in 2003, 5, and 7 is totally different than the journey today. Totally different. There is hope for the patients diagnosed today. There are treatments available for those patients, and there's organizations like us that can hopefully, and other patients that can help them through a really difficult time. So we do face-to-face meetings with patients regularly, and our doctors regularly, to see what we can do to provide for the patient's needs and what they need today and in this moment.
And I know that you guys are involved in, I think it's called Move for Melanoma. These are runs that you guys do. There was one last year in 2019. You went to France and you did it on the beaches in Normandy.
Hmm.
That must have been quite the experience. Did you guys both go for
No,
that?
that was Kathy's
Oh,
sister,
Kathy. Oh, Kathy's
yeah,
sister.
Yeah.
but
Nat and I are a little smarter than her. I'm hoping.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
I avoid
Nat
running.
Yeah, and both of us avoid running. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I rode my bike 50K in Montreal, and Nat did axe throwing. So
Oh,
it's,
really?
yes,
Axe throwing.
Yeah,
it's not just the running or walking. It's a get out and move.
Right. Well, you'll run if you have a bat in your hand, get hit a ball first, right?
Well, yeah, no, so only usually to first base, unfortunately. But
yeah, it's Move for Melanoma is an activity challenge so that anybody can do anything that they're comfortable with or like to do to get out there and raise awareness and raise funds, of course, for the foundation. But this year with COVID, it's a little bit different. It's virtual, which
Virtual.
it kind of was sort of virtual last year because it's really, you could, anybody anywhere can participate in any city across Canada and do whatever they want in the name of Save Your Skin and skin cancer and melanoma. So I'm not sure if I'm going to throw axes again this year or what I'm going to do. I think actually I've been talked into golf. So that ought to be interesting.
Probably a little safer for everybody.
Yeah, possibly.
And Kathy, I understand that you received a BC Community Achievement Award by the British Columbia government.
yes, sir, I did. Holy, that seems like forever ago. And that wasn't even on my bucket list. Who'd have thought?
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And what is, I mean, it kind of is self-explanatory, but is that something that they give out every year? How many of them are awarded? Do you know any of that?
It's given out yearly. Well, maybe not. I'm not sure, but I have to tell you, that was bittersweet. I did not even know that I had been nominated and didn't find out till 2 days before I had to go to Victoria. And I found out actually the day I lost my mom. And so it was one of our patients said the word bittersweet yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of my bittersweet moments when, because I know how proud my mom was, not only that I had survived, that I had taken a very bad situation and turned it into something, reasonably good for people. And yeah, it was very emotional. My family all came with me, and yeah, it was lovely.
Yeah, for sure. Sounds like it. Sounds like it. Well, I was talking before about how I got connected to you guys through my sister's situation. And I want to talk about that because again, I'm trying to draw awareness to this and I'm trying to promote prevention for this. And there could be a lot of people, like I said, maybe they just got diagnosed, maybe a loved one got diagnosed. I was there with my sister every step of the way. So I have a pretty good understanding of what she went through. And so that's why I want to talk about it. So in her case, she was diagnosed in April of 2019 with stage 4 melanoma. It was a mole on her back, similar situation. I guess not to you, Kathy, because you thought it was on your back, but it wasn't. But that's how it started. She went on a treatment called immunotherapy, which you talked about. It's when it helps the body's immune system fight cancer. It boosts the immune system. Mm-hmm. In her case, there's a side effect that you can get called pneumonitis, which is a lung inflammation. And in her case, she got that side effect. She had to be hospitalized because of it. She had to go off the treatment because of it. And so then they put her on an immunotherapy pill. And this is around the time that I got connected to you, Kathy, was because the two issues with this pill. The first issue was the price tag on it was $10,000 a month. And she was lucky that her insurance was able to cover it, but a lot of people don't have that kind of good fortune. And I had told her in her case, if your insurance doesn't cover it, I'll pay for it. But again, not everybody has those kind of resources. So that was the first issue. Second issue was this pill she went on. She was told that the effects are typically only effective for a year. And so the reason that I got connected to you is because I had been on my sister about, I want you to expand your network. I want you to look for other alternatives. I want you to look for clinical trials. And my sister, good or bad, I guess, she was very loyal, very trusting. She wanted to follow her doctor's plan. So I decided on my own. And in retrospect, I wish I had found you a year sooner, Kathy. But I had kind of left it up to my sister up until that point. But that's how I found you, was because I decided to do my own research. I wanted to try to help her find clinical trials for her. Unfortunately, in her case, the cancer spread to her brain. And once that happened, she was disqualified for a lot of trials. She also had arthritis, which disqualified her for a lot of trials. And so unfortunately, she lost her fight. But I wanted to bring that up, number one, because anybody going through a similar situation, expand your network if you can. Reach out to foundations like Save Your Skin. I really wish my sister had done it. I have a little bit of guilt about it that I didn't do it sooner myself. And so that's the first thing I wanted to mention. And then the other thing I wanted to say is that you, Kathy, were so kind to my sister. And I wanted to thank you because you called her on a couple of occasions to kind of give her support. And you even told me recently that you bought a star in her name. I'm not even sure how that works, but you told me something about how you bought a star in her name.
Yes, we do that. Well, we'd never want to forget the ones we've lost because I think
Right.
Nat and I know how lucky we were. Uh,
Mhm.
so what we do is we get onto Star Namer and we buy them a star in the universe, and we have it framed and sent to their loved ones. And you can actually put out your telescope and put in the coordinates, and you'll see your beautiful sister Sherry shining down on you.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, in a similar light to this, I just kind of want to ask you guys, if someone has been newly diagnosed, or if somebody has a family member that's been newly diagnosed, I'm sure my sister was not alone. Didn't know anything about it. Was probably scared, learning as she went along. Did the Google searches, as you said, you shouldn't do. And she was very trusting of her doctor. And I'm not disparaging her doctor. I'm sure her doctor was great. I heard her doctor was fine. I'm not disparaging her, but uh, sometimes I think you do need to expand your network, and you do need to look for alternatives. What is your message? And I'll start with Kathy on this. What's your message to anybody in the situation who they don't know where to turn, and they're trusting their oncologist and they're following their plan? What could you kind of say to those people?
I hope they find us at Save Your Skin because we can help in more ways than you'll ever know. When you're talking about your sister being told the cost of drug, at Save Your Skin, since our inception, I bet you we've raised or helped raise through GoFundMe close to $500,000 for patients who needed just that.
Right.
We had a patient that was on a clinical trial in Ontario. It wasn't working for her, and she wanted to get back to Edmonton to celebrate her son's 7th birthday, and we managed to raise $65,000 in 24 hours to get that young woman home to her child.
Wow.
And so there isn't anything we can't do or won't do. We can help navigate you through the system. We have an incredible connect with most of the melanoma task force of oncologists across the country who are fabulous to us. If we send them a text or an email, we generally will get a response right away. So I always hope people find us right at the onset. We can't save everybody, but we can hopefully make this whole process a little easier. As you know, James, navigating the healthcare system in every country, not just Canada, is very, very difficult. It's really difficult, and we don't even know that healthcare system how difficult it is until we're in it. And I've been in it, and Nat's been in it. A lot of our board of directors at Save Your Skin are actually patients that we helped.
Mm.
Our doctors say if we save them, Kathy will hire them. Uh,
Nice.
and who better to run a not-for-profit charity organization than than people that have been through the space. So I always hope they find us. I really do. We can help build that network, and together as a team, and I mean a team. Whether it be your oncologist, your GP, your derm, your advocacy group, nutritionalists, spiritually, people sometimes, want to include that in their plan, but we can help you build that plan and hopefully, you get a good outcome.
Right. Awesome. Now, I guess in closing here, one question I'm going to ask both you guys. Your answer might be the same, but one question I'm going to ask both you guys is, if anybody's watching this who maybe they have an affected mole and don't know it, maybe like you, they're busy in their daily life and they're not bothering getting it checked out, kind of thing. What, I guess, would be your message to these people, either if they're not aware that they might have something wrong, or if they might know but they don't think it's serious? I'll start with you. What would be your message to
Get
these
it
people?
checked. Get it checked. Early detection is key with melanoma, especially, but all skin cancer. The sooner it's found, the sooner it can be looked after. And if it's found at an early stage, it's quite often curable. So, it doesn't hurt to get a skin exam. And, every month people should check their own skin, front, back, upside down, mirror, hair dryer. Um, to check their skin all over. And then if there's something that just looks not right or feels not right, or if you have any question at all, should get it checked out with a, GP or another specialist or a dermatologist.
And I understand a dermatologist now, they can even do full body scans now. Like
They
that's a
can.
service they actually provide.
Yes. Yep.
So-
In some centers, yeah, they do.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Kathy, what about you? What would you say to people who either maybe they have a mole, maybe they don't? What would you do to say to those people?
Your skin is an organ. It's the largest organ of your body. It's no different than your lung, your liver, your heart. You need to protect it, you need to love it, and you need to check it. And everybody looks at their skin. I mean, we live in a digital world where we're all taking pictures. People are posting on, Facebooks, etc., etc. Everybody is looking at your skin. If you see something that does not look good, check it, have it checked. I went to my dermatologist and he used to tell me to take a picture of a mole and then 3 weeks later take another picture of that same mole, expand it on your camera and take a look. If anything looks different or odd to you, nobody knows your skin like you do. You get it checked right out of the gate. And I can't stress that enough, because if I had pushed mine, I would not have taken my family into the stage 4 cancer zone. And I will regret that for my entire life.
Yeah. And sometimes a long period of time can go by. Like in your case, how long did you have it before you got it checked out?
It was about 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah, and it was because it's such an aggressive cancer. It went that quickly. So chances are, it was nothing one day, and then 6 months later, it was stage 3 cancer. And if I had it looked at, maybe 1 month in, I might have been looking at a stage 1 and would still be, looked after and followed for the future, but it wouldn't have been the stage 3B cancer zone.
Right.
Yeah. Metastatic cancer.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you guys for your time. Like I said, I got a personal connection on this one, and going to be doing whatever I can to help promote you guys for sure. And so again, this is Kathy Bernard and Natalie Richardson from the Save Your Skin Foundation. Thanks a lot for joining me, especially coming in studio in Toronto. Kathy, thanks for your time, and I will stay in touch with both of you guys for sure.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you.
All right, thank you.